The Pew Research Center says 68% of Democrats think the Ferguson shooting raises an important issue about race that merits a discussion. Among Republicans, 61% say the issue of race has gotten too much attention, while only 22% say the case has raised important racial issues that need to be discussed. The reverse is at hand with Democrats, who think 68% of whom think the Ferguson shooting raises important issues about race that merit discussion. In a town that's deeply divided by race for many years, with a clear disparity between the racial makeup of the police and the community in Ferguson, why would Republicans not think this is a serious issue regarding race to be discussed? Carlos?
Well, thank you so much for having this debate. I think that those statistics sometimes can tell a different story than what is out there. Republicans do think there are very important issues that we should be discussing, things like police militarization. Does government have the power to take over your town, and even if you're protesting peacefully, to use weapons against you, military weapons against you? There's the welfare state. Are these communities trapped in poverty because of programs that seek to help but just keep people down? And last one, our largest prison population. The U.S. has the largest prison population in the world, even if for number per capita or total number of inmates. These are completely rational issues to talk about, and they're very important. But unfortunately, the left and some of the media has muddled this issue by going straight away into assumptions and conversations that are not helpful. It does two things. The evidence pointing to the assault or this tragic thing that happened, the police officer had the right to defend himself, and two, that these topics of race are used by the left and by the media to separate, to spread hate, and to not lead to any helpful conversation.
So we'll talk more about the media later, but do you have any sort of explanation or justification for why Republicans do not think that this incident is worthy of a conversation or discussion on race? Why do you think that Democrats and Republicans are so polarized in terms of their opinions on this, when it does seem, at least in this case, that there are clear racial problems and barriers that need to be discussed?
Definitely, it's racial, but it's also the relationship between government and the person. It's not just about the black community. It's not just about the poor community. It's about our society as a whole. What does a free society look like? And the difference between Democrats and Republicans is that this is a case that is a horrible example if you want to talk about race and society. This case doesn't give you real facts. What it does is
what I have difficulty understanding is why do you think Democrats look at this issue so differently? This is not a matter of like 2% or 5%. It's almost like black and white. Democrats overwhelmingly think that this shows that we need to continue to have a conversation on race, whereas Republicans overwhelmingly think that this is just being blown up and, it's just victimizing, this.
But we're talking about one single issue, and this single issue led to more than a dozen businesses to be vandalized. It led to 30 people being arrested, more than 30 people, and 2 police officers suffered injuries during these riots. Yes, there's something to talk about, but when you use this specific situation and you take it all in, you'll see that this is a bad example. If we wanted to discuss these important racial issues, we shouldn't be doing it by vandalizing streets, by having this whole racial war on the media.
But bottom line is, do you have any explanation for the fact that Republicans don't think this is worthy of, you represent the Republican community. Why do you think it is that they do not think this is worthy of a conversation on race? Why is that?
I think that...
Is there any rational reason for that?
What this led to was riots and businesses getting vandalized. That's why I'm opposed to using this as an example to say that to have any meaningful conversation. If you want to talk about meaningful conversation, we should talk about the prison population, decriminalization or demilitarization of the police and the welfare state, not just about the riots that happened.
No, he's right about those. Those are also things we need to have conversations about. I agree. But to say that this doesn't, have anything to do with race, I think that's just an unjustified statement. Obviously, there are a lot of citizens in Ferguson who think differently. You saw the stats here. I mean, the African-American population, which is the majority in Ferguson, are underrepresented in the police force and in the government. Obviously they feel that they're not being listened to, that their voice isn't being heard. They didn't riot. Let's put that out there too. They didn't riot. There was peaceful protests. Now there was looting. and shops were looted, but there's always going to be a criminal element that's going to take advantage of a situation.
I'm sorry, but from the mouths of the people that were out there, without the looting, there would be no attention. This just shows that it's not about issues. It's not about what's affecting our American cities. It's that they want to protest in a violent way, and this is why this is a horrible example. If we want to have a meaningful discussion, we come to the table and we talk about it. We don't riot and loot businesses.
So you think the only reason we're talking about this is because of the looting and rioting and nothing to do with the fact that an unarmed black teenager was shot by a white police officer? You think it has nothing to do with that?
It has everything to do with it, but I'm saying that it's a horrible example. The police officer had completely justified purposes for doing what he did.
I disagree, because maybe I would say the police officer had a right to defend himself, but the way he shot him at the end, like Mike Brown had given himself up. He had his hands up in the air and was no longer a threat to the police officer, and yet the police officer kept shooting. That's not a justified killing.
What I'm saying is we have to look at all the facts, and that is that we have autopsies that show that the shots were from the front
and the back,
and that he was pointing towards the police officer's cars when he fell. And that means that he was assaulting a police officer. It's never smart, and we should never say that anybody's justified in assaulting police.
I don't think that you should assault a police officer. That's hands down. You just can't do that, okay? But the police officer also had other means to kind of to gain control of the situation. He's been trained to gain control of the situation without the use of deadly force. Okay, but none of that was used. Now we can't. It's hard to say what we're not police officers, right? Obviously, so it's hard to say what we. It's hard to dictate what should have happened in that type of situation. But the fact of the matter is that the extreme force was used after Mike Brown had given up. Is that? Would you agree that?
Also after he had assaulted a police officer.
But would you agree that that the facts do show that he had raised his hands? He said, "Enough, I'm done." And
I don't think the facts will show that of what he said when he got shot or what actually happened. What we do have is the fact that
the witness. I'm sorry, no, but the witnesses would say otherwise.
Okay.